Hi, my name's Dan Nelson, and I'm a cartoonist. I like making funny pictures, and I hope you do too. If you've joined me for the first two sessions and you've heard me talk about the symbols that are used in cartooning, shapes of mouths, shapes of eyes, and you've heard me use this funny word, sympathy, the idea that you should feel kind of what it is, the emotion that you're drawing, and that will impact the kind of lines that you make. In this session, I really want to get a lot more practical. I want to talk to you about how do I develop my cartoons, and I think the way I do it is fairly typical of the way a lot of artists, cartoonists do it. I've put up here one of my own cartoons. It's a man greatly burdened down by a heavy load. Looks like an old load because it's got patches on it, and there's a bird sitting up there. I don't tend to do comic strips. I do some, but not so much. I tend to just do images that seem funny to me anyway, and I don't have them all planned ahead of time when I start. I'll just start drawing, and for instance, the patches here just come to me as I'm drawing along. It's like, yeah, cool, a patch, that'd be funny. And it's very possible, I don't remember when I was doing this one, but it's very possible I didn't have the bird in mind either. I'd just be drawing along and say, oh yeah, that'd be great. And I'd like you to draw that way too. Don't just draw the same cartoon over and over. I mentioned this at the end of the last session. Don't draw the same cartoon over and over. Play with it, play with it. Invent things as you go along. And watch out for the cliche. I used that word in our last session. A cliche is something that's done too much by everybody. And if your cartoons are full of cliches, like for instance, here's one. Every witch, a cartoon of a witch, she has to have a wart on the top of her nose. That's a cliche. If you're going to do that, then you have to, you're only allowed so many cliches in a day. I'm going to put it that way. So if you do one cliche, you have to be careful about not doing too many others. So I want to talk about how do I develop my cartoons. And very, very practically, now very often, let me confess one thing right off the bat, that I don't usually stand at a big sheet of paper like this and do my cartoons. I'm usually sitting at a desk or with a clipboard in my lap. And I do hold my pencil the right way. I very much do that. And I'll be sitting like this drawing. But it's hard to get that on camera. So for the purposes of this production, I'm standing at a board. You don't need to stand up. Although it's great to stand up, you don't have to do it. Let's say that somebody comes to me and it's an assignment. They say, Dan, we want you to draw a cartoon of a mad scientist. And the mad scientist is, I'm not sure what he's doing. Is he looking in a microscope? Maybe he's pouring something from a beaker into a flask, and there's bubbles coming up. But they want a mad scientist. So I start thinking, mad scientist, mad scientist. No, if I really don't know what a mad scientist looks like, it's so easy these days, right? You go to your computer, you get on Google or something, and you Google images, say mad scientist, and then you get some ideas. It didn't used to be that easy in the olden days. We had to use paper. Can you imagine that? We had to use books and stuff. Oh, it was wonderful. But I already have an idea what a mad scientist looks like. So what'll happen is I'll start scribbling, and I mean that pretty literally. I don't even know exactly what my mad scientist is going to look like yet, but I'll start scribbling. And does a mad scientist wear glasses? Yeah, let's say he wears glasses kind of down on the end of his nose. Do you see how I'm making this up as I go? This is what I think you should do. Make it up as you go. And it's very important that you hold your pencil the right way and that you draw very lightly. And what kind of expression does a mad scientist have? How about this one? He's grinning kind of. He's got sort of a mischievous grin. Does a mad scientist have a mustache? I'm not so sure. I don't think so. Do you see how I'm thinking through the process? Now I have to sort of decide: is this sort of a mean, scary mad scientist, or is he kind of a goofy mad scientist that we're more inclined to laugh at? Well, so far, this one I think he looks a little more goofy than scary, don't you? Now here's a mad scientist. What kind of ears does he have? And I hope that you're understanding what I'm doing. I'm thinking out loud. Usually I do this in my brain quietly, but in my mind I'm thinking, what are mad scientist ears? How about if they're kind kind of big, and they stick out a little bit. Are you with me? I bet you know this one. What kind of hair does a mad scientist have? What do you think? Well, he could have a shaved head, I know, but nah, probably not right. What's his hair going? Woohoo! It's sticking out in every direction, don't you think? Yeah, man, and I'm going to make his forehead a little bit shorter than I did earlier. So he's got hair that's sticking out like this. There we go. Now he's looking a little bit like a mad scientist, don't you think? And I'm going to make his smile even a little bit bigger than I did the first time. Do you see why I draw real light with a pen, with a pencil, I mean? It's so that I can change my mind. I say, yeah, he needs to have a bigger, more mischievous. And do you see that he's kind of looking off to the side here like that? Now, is this a mad scientist that's frowning, or are his eyebrows up? Now, see, I think I drew it both ways, and I think this is a mad scientist. I think with his eyebrows up. Let me see how I like that. Yeah, no, I'm not so sure. Let me try him with his eyebrows down. I hope you understand that this is the process that I go through when I'm drawing a cartoon. And do you see how different it is from what I called in the earlier session, what I called art school cartoons, where every line is, I already know how to draw a mad scientist. I've done it, my teacher taught me and I copy him. You see that? What's wrong with that? They're not funny. And I really hope that I'm going to be able to draw a funny cartoon here. Now, some of them turn out funnier than others. How about if I've got kind of a bulbous nose. What would it look like if I made a kind of a long, skinny nose? Would that be? Oh, I think that's a little better. Maybe not quite that long. Are you with me so far? You see, so I can erase things. I can change my mind a little bit here and there. What else should we do? I kind of like this cheek sticking out like that. I like that. How about a chin? Would he look better with a pointy? Nah, I don't like that. He's got a bottom lip, though, and he's a smile line. All these things you just learn as you look at human beings, as you look at faces, and you know the symbols. Now, does a scientist have a short, squatty neck or a long, skinny neck? What do you think? Long and skinny? It made me laugh. I don't know if that's a good one or not. Yeah, I think I like it. Let's do long and skinny. Maybe even a bit of an Adam's apple. Careful about that. An Adam's apple can be one of those cliches we talked about. Now, this part is in order to be a mad scientist, he pretty much has to have a lab coat on, I think. And what is he doing? Let's pretend that he's just invented something in this test tube, and he's holding it up here, kind of to show the viewer what he's holding. And so his arm goes back like that. And I want him to be, his shoulders are hunched a little more than I just did. So that makes him, I'm a mad scientist, right? So he's got his shoulders up, maybe a little bit, even a little bit more than that. There we go. We're getting there. Do you see how the process works? I don't have everything made up, and I'm doing a lot of scribbling, and it looks like a great big mess, but hang on, it's going to be all right. And now maybe there's some kind of gag. What would it be if he's got something in this test tube? I mean, obviously it could have bubbles coming out of it, and bubbles are here. There's a popped bubble. We could do something like that. How about if we had some kind of little creature that was coming out? And maybe it's a snaky, wormy kind of thing. He's smiling. I don't want to. It wouldn't be funny to me if there was a creature in great pain. That wouldn't be a funny cartoon. But this guy, this little creature, he's kind of like a snake, I guess, and he's coming up out of the test tube, and I don't know what's going on there, but maybe it's funny. I'm just going to make one more change. I'm not sure about that eye. I'm going to go up here and change it a little bit. By the way, when I'm doing my cartoons for a client, for a job, I will often change things many times. I'll do many versions of the cartoon before I decide on one. Now that's a big eye, kind of open, kind of wide, but it looks a little bit mean. I'm not sure I want that. There, I think maybe just a wide open eye. He's a little bit surprised. And now I might be changing his eyebrows. How many times have I changed that eyebrow yet? I hope this isn't boring to you, but I hope you're paying attention. There, he's just turned into a little bit of a happier mad scientist, which is more. It's getting more fun to me. And I'm going to move the line of his glasses down a little bit. And I'm liking that. So after I've gotten it drawn this far, you see now the process that I go through. I make it up, I scribble, I change my mind, I erase things. Now, my favorite thing to draw with is actually a paintbrush. So I've gone ahead and gotten a brush here, and I begin to trace, but I use that word loosely because I don't know how well you can see this, but if you watch me carefully, you'll see that I am not tracing perfectly. I'm not tracing exactly. I'm just, the pencil lines are there to get me close to the right place, but even, or I should say even, especially when I'm doing the final lines, it's important that I do this, what I called sympathy, expressive lines, that I'm kind of feeling the personality of this guy. And I let my brush make fat lines and skinny lines. I let my brush make smooth lines and rough lines. I even let my brush have a little bit of a life of its own and do things that I hadn't completely anticipated. In fact, that's why I prefer using a brush, because I have less control. And it creates lines in the cartoon that I didn't anticipate, that I didn't expect. And that's fun to me. Here's a good rule. Do your cartoons make you laugh, even after you've drawn them? And I know that might be a little bit silly, and you might think I'm crazy, but my cartoons make me laugh. If they don't make me laugh, I'm not sure it's a very good cartoon. And for that reason, too, I allow my cartoons to surprise me. Things happen that I hadn't anticipated at the beginning. Here's that crazy, mad scientist here. What do you think? Is that coming along? And he's got his skinny neck and sure a little bit of an Adam's apple. And then I decided to raise his shoulders way up in his lab coat, so he's kind of got that mad scientist laugh going on. And then he's got a collar on his. These things you can just learn just by practicing. I'm not going to tell you, how to draw a collar. Now, I do know that lab coats have pockets on the side, and very often when I'm drawing a lab coat, I'll do something like, I didn't do this in my sketch at all, it just dawns on me right now. I'll draw a rat inside the scientist's pocket. He's sitting there watching the whole operation and enjoying it a good bit. Okay, and let me see. Let me finish this arm just a little bit. I'm almost done. Don't want to bore you too much. Let's do this little, I think he's a newt, like the old Eye of Newt witch's recipe. I don't really know what a newt looks like, but if I were making up newts, it would look something like that. I think a newt is a lizard, to tell you the truth. So that's kind of lizardish. And again, this is a happy newt. I don't want to make him suffering. It's also a happy rat. I like sad cartoons, but I don't like the animals in my cartoons to be sad. To me, that's not very funny. And there's his test tube. Now, here's what I want you to do. Go ahead, feel free, copy this cartoon after me once or twice, or maybe even 3 times. Impress your friends, show your mama, say, look, I can draw a mad scientist. But do you get the idea? And then, of course, I come back. I won't do it right now. I come back and erase the pencil lines. Does that make sense? But it doesn't. It still works fairly well because my ink lines are so much heavier than the pencil that you can still tell what's going on even though all the pencil lines are still there. There you go. That's how I draw cartoons. Lots of thinking, lots of making up, lots of scribbling and erasing and changing my mind, doing things on the spur of the moment that make me laugh. Go ahead, laugh at your own cartoon. After you've done this a couple times, make up your own. Fireman, horse. We haven't even talked about cartoon animals. I do a lot of cartoon animals. The key thing is always be drawing something new. I hope that helps you. It's been really fun having you along with me. I hope you draw a lot of cartoons and enjoy doing it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.